What I wanted to do here is talk about my experiences with hallucinogens and the various different ones that I've been involved with. Such would include acid, of course, mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, TMA-2, which is a relatively new chemical compound, Salvia divinorum, DMT, dimenahydrinate, and dextromethorphan. So I guess, and some interesting things about these drugs throughout over history and how they got where they are, starting with acid. Now, acid was the first hallucinogen that I ever did was mushrooms, but then the next thing I tried after that was acid. So still close to the very beginning of since I started tripping. And acid has this really euphoric electrical feel to it. And it has these, only acid does this too. It has these times when you almost feel completely back to normal, like it just wore off within 3 seconds, and then like 5 seconds later, it comes back, and it comes back strong, and usually it comes back stronger, and it'll do that like in waves throughout the entire trip. Now, I've never actually really had any auditory hallucinations with it. Everybody's different. But visually and with the sense of feeling are the two most affected senses by acid, by far. And it lasts a good long time, anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. And the things that I like about it is acid, more than any of the other ones, seems to have the most realistic, like it's like you're seeing the world for what it really is when you're tripping acid. The way things look, the way they melt and mold together and move and breathe. Mushrooms is kind of similar to that, but it's not exactly the same. I think acid has a more profound, more euphoric feeling to it than mushrooms. Mushrooms specifically have that feeling right at the beginning. Even when you eat just an eighth and more, like I would usually eat just an eighth of mushrooms, but one time I ate half an ounce, and 3 times I ate a quarter, and they always have that time towards the beginning where very shortly after, right when it kicks in, you think to yourself, oh my god, I really did it this time. This isn't good. And that lasts, I'd say, for anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours. 2 hours only happened to me once. Usually, other than that one time, I'd say the bracket is anywhere from 15 minutes to 35 minutes. But acid has this tremendously influential view of reality on your mind. And I can't do this with any other hallucinogen, but acid flashbacks can be summoned, uh, and I've noticed this is a permanent thing for me now. If I just sit there and gaze at something for, like, everything appears to be still, but if I sit and stare at the same thing for like 2 minutes, I'll start to see it like move, like I'm tripping acid. Not as far to the extreme as the actual acid trip, but it's definitely permanently in me. Uh, when I look at an object, a lot of people say that flashbacks just happen randomly, uh, but for me, they have to be summoned. I have to sit there and gaze at something. But of course, everyone's different. Uh, and then there's TMA, TMA2, the relatively new chemical compound, white powder. Uh, Now, it's probably the most like acid of the ones, but it's not as good. But it has a stronger feeling to the body. Um, One thing that it does do, though, that I really don't like is all the times I've taken it, which really is only 4, my spine hurts, and not in a good way. It, if it didn't have that effect, then I'd say it was like almost as good as acid. Uh, and it's a bit more of a mind fuck, I think. Is sometimes psychologically, it's just like, cuckoo, holy shit, I am cuckoo. Whereas acid doesn't do that. Acid's usually a smooth ride. It's like pretty much a flawless hallucinogen as I see it. Um, Microscopic, no no smell, taste, or anything visually unusual about it. Um, Yet it can change your whole world. That's just fascinating to me. Something microscopic is like I've sit there and laughed my ass off holding a little tiny square before going, had you never tripped acid, you would have no idea what these little squares are capable of. TMA though, I didn't have any open eye visuals with it, but when I close my eyes, that's where it's at with that drug particularly. Uh, the feeling, I would say, the only thing that it would have on acid, if my spine didn't hurt during it, and it's happened all 4 times, so I know it's the drug. It's just not. But that's the only thing it has wrong with it. Well, that, and it's a bit of a mind fuck, but yeah, closed eyes visuals with that stuff. How much time do I have left? And on to dimenahydrinate. Now, this one's very unique in its own way. I've taken anywhere from 500 to 1600 milligrams of dimenahydrinate, but it is a downright scary fucking trip. There's definitely a strong feeling there, but it doesn't register as a good positive thing. And on top of that, you see things that completely aren't even there, completely like don't exist, except for in your mind. For instance, I was in the Schlotzsky's Deli parking lot with my brother one time, and I saw some guy walk up to the hood of my car. We were in my car, Uh, we spent like 3 hours in my car because we were just too fucked up to do anything. But and then this guy came walking at us, walks up to the hood of my car, crosses his arms and goes, looking me right in the eyes. And I remember he was wearing a winter cap. And I was like, oh my god, dude, what do you think this guy wants? And he'd be like, who? And then I'd look around and he'd be completely gone. That's just one of many things that hallucinations that I've had with it. It's the only hallucinogen that causes me to see things that completely aren't there. Uh, and it's the only one that causes me to start a sentence and have no idea where I'm going with it. That's another thing about it. It just completely fucks your memory up. Temporarily, though. During it, it's a little scary because it seems like it's permanent. I can remember numerous times people saying something to me, and while I'm thinking about a response, I'll be like, oh my god, I have no idea what they just said. I think it's exactly like being that guy in the movie Memento with no memory. That's exactly what diaminohydronate trip is like. It like I there was the time when we were in the Schlotsky's Deli parking lot. Uh, one one minute I'm sitting there in my car, and then the very next minute I'm out on the road slamming on my brakes at a red light. And it was really weird because in my mind, the sitting around in a car in Schlotsky's Deli parking lot seemed like it was 1 second ago. Like my vision just flashed, and really I had no fucking idea where I was, and I'd been driving around with my brother for a long time. We drove really far, and I just completely didn't remember it at all. On to the next. Then there's dextromethorphan or dextromethorphan, either NyQuil or triple C, and this is from back in the day because that stuff doesn't work anymore. They changed the ingredients, I think, in it because people were getting into tripping with it. So I only had the real stuff, like way back in the 90s, like probably 5 times. And one thing peculiar about it is the temperature variations. Oh man, and it was not not in a good way either to feel like that. Like 1 minute I'd be freezing my ass off, and then the next minute I'd be like stripping down butt naked, laying on cold sheets or going outside into the snow. There was only one time when I went outside and laid in the snow. So the temperature of the body just keeps rising and falling. It had pretty intense closed eye visuals, but it was nothing like it didn't compare to the closed eye visuals from TMA2. I'd say that drug, and it's even more psychedelic, more strongly psychedelic than acid, with just in the closed eye area. I'm talking about TMA2 in comparison to acid, not dextromethorphan. But anyways, it would cause me with my eyes open to see really weird shit, but things that I'm not sure I actually saw, and think the train of thought. How much time do I have? Alright, now I'll just move right on to DMT. Now, DMT is only something that I've just recently been experimenting with, and I'm talking NN DMT, not 5-MeO. NN is the good shit, and this DMT is just way beyond like any of the other hallucinogens as far as a mind fucking visual response, hearing, but feeling. I don't think it feels as strong as TMA2. Like, there's definitely a feeling to it though. And the last time I did it, it felt like my brain straight down the center was caving off to the side like that, and then stopping right here, and then there'd be these attached to the skull, and then the skull right here going like that again. So then there'd be one here, and then hatching through the top of my head again. It felt like my brain was lifting up through my skull, right through the center, and the light, it was completely amazing. It was just a regular sunny day, but the light actually had three-dimensional geometry built into it. And this is like 5 seconds after taking a hit, you're fine, but 10 seconds after, it goes from like 0 to 100 miles an hour in just a few seconds. And the first time I did it, I must admit, I was really scared. I thought that things were going to stay that way for a really long time. The first time was definitely the most unpleasurable of the DMT experiences, but after that, I was never afraid, because the reason I was afraid the first time was because I thought it was going to last a really long time, and it's quite a mind fuck. It's the most amazing experience I think I've ever had. It blows all the other hallucinogens out of the water with its compacted, intense force of psychedelia. Another thing that I saw, I was seeing the shadow of a tree on a cement path, and I could actually see in these really like triangles made out of little triangular shapes, like moving outwards from the center. I could actually see the depth and the darkness of the shadow on the path, and I was like, wow, it's suddenly so apparent that everything I've ever seen in my entire life is just how my brain interprets it, and not how things really are. Well, there really no particular way in the first place, because things aren't really a particular way, because things are every particular way, meaning there's an infinite number of, or a very high number of people with different perspectives to see this reality that we live in. But I was looking at it looked like really colored, and I've seen the same thing kind of too on acid, but not nearly as intense. This took up my whole vision, and light, just because there was light in the sky, the sky looked like the air, I could see 3D depth in the air, and I could see 3D depth in the shadows on the sidewalk. Uh, the sidewalk thing is really hard to explain, but it was the same concept as the air. Oh shit, I'm out of